You're listening to Live from the Backroom on 106.1 Flip FM. We are joined today by Jon Hope. Jon, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, tickled to death to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Jon, you are a artist from Olney, and
Yes, sir.
I am worried that not many people say that right.
So we say Olney like with an A, but I'm worried that I don't say that right. We've only we've only lived there 6 years. That's how my in-laws pronounce it, so that's what we have kind of gone with. But it kind of goes all over the place. So
We understand it's West Texas. You know,
Yes,
it's same with Floyd Ada. You know, we get a lot
Yes.
of different places saying it differently.
Yes.
So, well, thank you very much for joining us today. You drove up here. I assume you drove along 114 to get here. For those of you guys who are listening who don't know, you know, it's one of those places that you drive through on your way to Fort Worth. So
yes, a whole lot of pasture.
well, it's at least better than driving through Oklahoma. You know?
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. It's a bad day in Texas is better than a good day in Oklahoma.
Apologies to anybody actually listening in Oklahoma, but yeah, it's true. So, Jon, you have been you're pretty new to the scene. I understand you released a single, "Country Livin," coming up. I guess it's been September, or was it earlier than that you released it?
So we released May 18th
Oh wow, okay.
of this year, and kind of in the midst of all the COVID craziness, and so we released May 18th, and I think we did 22, 23 weeks on the charts. So I'm just blown away. I'm really pleased at how this first one is done. Because, having never done it before, no bass line, it's kind of like, I don't know what to expect. You just don't have a clue until you throw it out there and see what happens. So,
Well, it's a solid song, and it's one that we played for a long time. I am curious what exactly Chicken Pickin is.
so if you've ever listened to Brad Paisley, that would be Chicken Pickin. A lot of his guitar work, and it's funny because Country Livin is the only song that I've recorded that I actually didn't write. My producer and one of my really good friends, Will Wallace, wrote it, and I was not initiated to Chicken Pickin either, and I was like, I got everything in that song except for Chicken Pickin. You need to tell, and he was like, okay. So then he pretty much told me, Brad Paisley, you need to go listen to that, Brent Mason, all that, the good country twang guitar.
Understand now?
Chet Atkins.
I feel very enlightened. So being is that you didn't write it, but it's a song you obviously still relate to. Tell us kind of about how you came into country music.
Man, country has always been country music has always been my thing. I grew up on Randy Travis and Alabama and Keith Whitley and the Judds, and in fact, my first concert was the Judds, and it was awesome. I've always been taken by country music. It's unapologetically simple and truthful and to the point. I think where some other genres aren't, and I really like that. So I've always been drawn to country, and I've done music most of my life. Played in praise and worship bands in church and stuff like that. So this was just kind of a natural thing to, once I learned guitar well enough, kind of start trying to write. Write what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I was naturally kind of pulled back to towards country.
So we were talking before we started recording about you picked up the guitar in high school doing praise and worship, and also you found out that it was helpful to pick up girls.
Yeah. I started playing guitar when I was 15. I begged my mom for a guitar. I was in the praise and worship band, and we couldn't keep a guitar player to save our lives. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. I'll learn. I'll figure it out. And so I begged my mom for a guitar, and she got me a guitar, and it was this little cheap job, and I learned some basic chords, enough to play the praise and worship songs. And then when I got into high school, I didn't really tell anybody that I played guitar outside of church. And then when I got into high school, I saw a couple other kids that were like bringing their guitars to school and stuff, and that was like the cool thing to do. And yeah, the chicks dig it. So then it was like, oh, well, then I better bring my guitar to school too, and cash in on some of that. So yeah.
I love that story. So you've been playing obviously for a few years now. Where, I guess, after high school, where has your music taken you exactly?
In a roundabout way, it's taken me all over the United States. One of the things that music did for me, and I think for a lot of people, is there's a lot of songs about traveling. There's a lot of songs about truck driving in country music. And my grandfather was a truck driver, and his brother was a truck driver, and it romanticized that, 18 wheels, 13 gears, rolling down the highway in a huge 18-wheeler. And so when I turned 21, it was either music or drive a truck. And life kind of happened to me, and I knew that at that point, making a living off of music, especially living in Midland, and I love my hometown, but especially back then, there wasn't a lot of venues. There wasn't a lot of places you could play. It's not like Fort Worth or any other big town in Texas. There's just not a lot there, except for restaurants and oil rigs. So I decided that, you know what, we'll put the music thing kind of on hold. And I started driving a truck, and I continued to play guitar, and I continued to write songs, but it was more just woodshedding, I guess, just, man, if I ever get the chance, maybe I'll be prepared. And so that's kind of where my music's been. I haven't, until May of this year, I had never even gotten paid to play my music for anybody. And it was such a foreign concept that it took me a minute to get used to it. Like, oh, I can go play a gig and people will pay to hear this. Because in church, you're just, you're expected to just volunteer your time and do, and that's great.
Doing it for the Lord.
Absolutely. But when you're doing this as, and I use air fingers quotes, professionally, for myself, it's a foreign concept that, hey, you could actually make a little bit of money and get paid. And so that was very strange, but yeah, I played guitar, I wrote songs, and hoped for a time where I would be able to do this. And so here we are. 2020, I think, has been a weird year for everybody. I am not excluded from that. This has been the weirdest, awful, awesome, horribly great, just mix of grab bag of stuff for this year, because in the midst of coming home from the oil field, it was crashing, and not having a job, kind of came this, hey, you've got an opportunity, and I had some family that helped me out with that opportunity, and so here we are. And I guess I'm thankful for every day, and we just move forward one day at a time. So,
well, it's an excellent song, and we talked a little bit before. If you have that song coming up, or you've had that song out, you also have another one coming up in January.
Yes, sir.
Tell us anything about that one.
That's the plan. So I think it's going to be a song called "The Highway." I'm 90% sure that's the one we're going to release. And that was kind of I wrote that song to my wife. I was driving a truck in the oil field, and I would leave home, and I would be gone for 6-8 weeks at a time. And then I would come home and live this kind of pretend life, like we had a normal life, and like I was home every day for 4 or 5 days. And then I would go away for 6 more weeks at a time. And so I kind of wrote this song to her just about, I know you're lonely at home, and believe me when I tell you I'm missing you out here on the road. So it's a cool song.
Well, we ask you here to play. So which song would you prefer to share with us this morning?
Gosh, you want to do Country Livin' first?
Sure, absolutely. You're listening to Live from the Backroom on 106.1 Flip FM, and we're here with Jon Hope.
All right, Country Livin'. Well, it's a long ways down that road where I grew up. I learned a lot about the land in the back of that pickup truck. It's hard to tell that all this land was thick and tall. I love that country living now, how about y'all? Well, it's a shame to live my life like this. I'm starting to forget the simple things in life that I miss. It's that country living, chicken picking, homegrown loving style. That tractor riding, back road driving stuck with me a while. The city living starting to ruin my style. Well, that city living starting to ruin my style. Yeah, I still drive a beat-up truck. It's itching for some mud. Let's take this horse off the road and we'll have some fun. Yeah, we'll kick off and drink some beer. It's time us country boys showing these city folks what it's like to have country toys. It's that country living, chicken picking, homegrown loving style. That tractor riding, back road driving stuck with me a while. The city living starting to ruin my style. Well, that city living starting to ruin my style. Yeah, it's that country living, chicken picking, homegrown loving style. That tractor riding, back road driving stuck with me a while. The city living starting to ruin my style. Well, that city living starting to ruin my style.
You're listening to Live from the Back Room on 106.1 Flip FM. We're here with Jon Hope. That was his debut single, Country Livin'. Good job.
Thanks, sir.
I especially love the guitar at the beginning of it, just because it's like that's a statement. You're like,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, here we go.
Absolutely. We so the first time I heard that song was the first time that I met my buddy Will, and I'd gone in to kind of tour his studio. He had an ad on Craigslist, and this was 10 years ago, and we went in and he was kind of showing us, and it's this little bitty studio. It's real homey and cozy and cool, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, man, I like this place. This is cool. It's got a good vibe to it. I said, can you play us something that you've done? He said, absolutely. He said, this is the first song that I ever wrote. I think that's what he told me. This is the first song I ever wrote. And I was like, cool. He pulled it up on the computer and it starts playing across the monitors. And it was a little bit more bluegrassy. It had like a banjo, and I think it had a mandolin, and just all of these layers, but it still had that at the beginning. And I was like, man, that is cool. And I said, I don't know if this would be weird, but like, can we cut that song? Can I cut that song? And he was kind of like, yeah, we'll talk about it. So we went in and recorded some stuff, and I just kept wearing on him, dude, you've got to let me record Country Livin'. But like, I can totally hear it, more rocked out, just a little bit. Just let me put an edge on it. And he's like, that song's kind of my baby, man. And anyway, we did like 4 or 5 other songs, and finally he kind of relented, and he was like, okay, all right, but if it's too far, I get to say it's too far, right? And I'm like, yes. So we did that, and that's how it turned out. It was, man, I couldn't be prouder of it. So.
Well, like you said, you've seen success with it, so congratulations.
We have, and I'm thrilled that it's done this well, especially for the first time out, and being, it's weird. when literally it's like starting. Well, it's like starting a new job. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows your name. They don't know what you can do, or if you can even do it. And so, to you guys that took a chance on me, that played this song, thank you guys so much. I mean, it means the world to me. So this was the first.
Well, thanks. So, as you know, 2020 was in a lot of ways good for you, but still kind of as a artist and a musician, not being able to get out and play. As you look forward to 2021 and you've got more music coming out, and hopefully the world will open back up. What are you seeing on your horizon?
So yeah, 2020 was a frustrating. I mean, in that sense, I played a lot of acoustic gigs in 2020, which has been fantastic. It's been great to really get out there and kind of get used to gigging on a regular basis. But I have musicians that I play with that I know, and they're fantastic, and I'm chomping at the bit so bad to play a full band show, and there's not the venues with everything opening and closing. And so I don't know. It's tough. I know public safety is important and it matters. On the other hand, I feel like bars, restaurants, and these clubs where live music happens, and it's a very uniquely Texas thing, have almost been demonized. I don't really understand how you can't get COVID at Walmart, but you can get it in a bar or restaurant, and that frustrates me. And I understand that there's a difference, and that restaurants and bars are entertainment, whereas Walmart's, grocery stores, things like that are, they're providing food. But at the same time, there's no restriction necessarily on how many people can go into Walmart. They just flood in. So that is very frustrating to me. I feel like to some extent, clubs, venues kind of have been unfairly picked on. And if things go the way that I would love them to go, if things go the way I'd love them to go, COVID would go away and we'd all go back to normal, if I'm being honest. But that's probably not going to happen. So optimistically, full band shows, would be just, if we could keep the venues open to where, a full band show was a thing, and it was easier for a guy like me kind of at the bottom of the pile to book, a full band show, even if it was once a month. Because like I said, the acoustic gigs, and that's what's kept me going. And my heart goes out to all the small places that have been able to stay open during this, that have allowed guys like me and others to be able to play. But there's just something about being up there with a band, feeling the kick drum in your chest, and and really putting on a show. And that's really what I'm itching to do. So fingers crossed for 2021, y'all.
Fingers crossed, absolutely. So going back a little bit, you talked about writing a song for your wife when you were kind of on the road.
Yes, sir.
In that romanticized idea of truck driving, I think I even have it. You have time to yourself, and you have a lot of time to think. Did you find that was a good opportunity for songwriting? I mean, you can't just like pull over the truck over and write it down, but
right. Yes. Well, it depends. So the kind of truck driving that I did for about the first 10 years that I drove, yes. I was pretty much on the interstate all the time. I drove cross country, so it was a lot of longer hauls. And yeah, you've got you're right. You got a lot of time to think. You get a lot of windshield time. And yeah, sometimes stuff just kind of comes to you. You see a sign and you're like, well, that'd make a cool hook, or, I could twist that word around and put it here. And you kind of, the hardest part is trying to remember it. And I've got a Bluetooth headset, and I've actually got it queued up on my phone to where I can make it record with one button. And so once I kind of got that, it was a little easier because I could like make these stupid little notes that I'd listen to later, almost kind of embarrassed that I was even listening to them. But yeah, I mean, there's been some inspiration, and but for me, it was more just the being gone. I write better when I'm in a bad mood. I can write a happy song in a bad mood that's good, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But if I'm just happy-go-lucky and everything's cool, I can sit down and I can't write. I'm like, I don't have anything to say right now. I don't know. I write better when it's raining, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's been some inspiration. I think there was probably more after, my wife and I, I'm gone all the time. I was working in the oil field, and then it was just those long stretches, and it takes its toll. It's for every song that has romanticized truck driving, like Eastbound and Down, and all those, and the Convoy, song and all that stuff. You get out there and you find out a lot differently. I mean, you actually have to put in the miles. You're going to do a couple thousand miles this week. And when you first start off, it's like, you want me to do what? Like, I live in Texas. I'm not opposed to driving. We pretty much have to drive to go everywhere. But you wanted me to do how many miles in a week? It's like, yeah, 3,500, something like that. If you could just average 3,500 a week, it's like, whoa. So, I mean, and then you build up some stamina, you get used to it, and then maybe you do a little bit better than that. But yeah, it's an adjustment. And but yeah, I think being gone all the time in the oil field was probably more inspiring, just because of the long stretches, and it gave me time to reflect. It's like, do I want to do this forever? And my heart goes out to guys that make lifelong careers of that, because it's a hard road to hoe. It's a good living, and you will financially support your family, but it's a hard road to hoe.
So with the, you mentioned that there's songs that kind of influenced your career decision. What are the artists that you would say influenced your style and your not just your love of the music, but also just kind of like, I don't want to copy this guy, but I like how this sounds, and I want to incorporate that into my music.
Sure. So Randy Travis sold the drug that got me addicted. Because this is an addiction.
Right.
And man, when I was a kid, I had every Randy Travis cassette that he had out, and every time he'd put a new one out, we'd get it. And I mean, I loved it. Old 8x10 and The Storms of Life and all of that. I mean, it just, he was, even at 4 and 5 years old, I don't know, there's something about his music and the kind of melancholy that he carried with a lot of it. And it caught me even as a little kid. And I was like, wow, that's cool. And then I think guys like him and Keith Whitley, of course, and Reba. But as far as musical influences and business-wise, who influences me, I like Jason Aldean. I love Wade Bowen, Randy Rogers. I don't love the pop country so much, and it's not. Mm-hmm. This is just my opinion. Nobody stoned me on the air on Facebook or whatever, but it's not so much that I have a problem with the music. I think there's a lot of good songs on Top 40 radio, Top 40 country radio, that are wonderful. I just don't necessarily know that they're country. I love Lady Antebellum, but a lot of their stuff isn't really country. I think of country as Alan Jackson and Garth Brooks and all those, the Hat Acts, know, and so I don't know. Jason Aldean's early stuff probably influenced me a lot. Eli Young Band, big one. Wade Bowen. And as far as the trajectory of his career and his work ethic, not to mention his music, because he's a powerhouse. Cody Johnson, probably at the top of that list. I just admire him greatly in the way that he conducts himself and the way that he works. I think he's probably one of the hardest working dudes out there. And not to mention, he just has that voice. So, and I think it embodies country. And so watch out, George Strait. I think Cody's coming for you.
Well, a lot of those artists you mentioned, Cody Johnson and Randy Rogers and some others, have sat exactly where you're sitting right now. So looking 10 years ahead, what are you going to tell the next up-and-comer? Like, hey, when I was getting started, this is like the first thing I learned, and I want you to know this.
Gosh, that's a kind of a doozy.
We ask hard questions here.
Hey, that's good. I think if you know that you've got talent to give when you're in high school or junior high or whatever, I would say think very carefully about what you do after high school, because I'm going to quote my mother. Good Lord, I hope she's not watching this. But my mother always told me, and she was right, the decisions that you make today have the ability to affect you for the rest of your life. And so be careful about the decisions that you make today. Early in my teens and early 20s, I did not heed her advice. And so I kind of was, I pushed myself off course. And I think God has a plan. And so here I am today. But I think my advice would be, I guess the same as my mother's, which is just be careful of the decisions you make today early on, because they can affect you for the rest of your life. And if it's something that you want to do, and you want to do it when you're teens or early 20s, set your mind to it and do it then, because it's possible to do it once you have a family, but it's exponentially harder. And so, because then you're probably juggling a day job, and because you've got to keep the light bill paid, and you've got to keep food on the table, and you've got to spend time with these people, and they're wonderful, and they're the most important people in your life. But it also makes a dream that you're trying to chase that much harder on you and also on them. And so, plan it from the beginning. Don't let it plan you. I think that would be the best advice I could give anybody.
All right, we'll play that back in 2030. We'll let you know how it goes. So we have invited you here. We've very much enjoyed talking with you, but this is a radio station. People like to hear country music. We always have this where we allow people to come on and play a cover song, something that they love and they've identified with and is very meaningful to them personally. So the floor is yours. What song do you think best kind of encapsulates that for you?
So I think I'm going to play you I think this was the first Cody Johnson tune that I ever heard, and it's called "Guilty as Can Be," and I need to retune my guitar real quick.
All right.
Drop it into D.
While he's talking, to let you know, you are listening to Live from the Backroom on 106.1 Flip FM. We are here with Jon Hope. John's first single, Country Livin, was released earlier this year. He's got a new single coming up next month, January.
Okay, I think we're good.
All right.
All right. I hope Cody Johnson doesn't hear this and I get accused of butchering his song, but this is one of my favorites that he does, and so here we go. It's called "Guilty as Can Be." Once I had me a woman, everything was going my way. She thought I had hung the moon and she had an angel's face. Till one night I pulled in my drive and something was going on. There was a long bedford in my spot that I damn sure didn't know. Well, I walked up to the screen door and I heard this awful noise. And I moved on to the living room. There sat my two boys. I said, where's Mama? And they both pointed to the bedroom down the hall. I ain't never been a fighting man, but her head was all I saw. See, brother, 'cause I've been down and I've been out, and I know how it feels to stand up for what you think is right and get knocked off your heels. And I'm murdering a man who didn't understand what she meant to me. It means I'll rot here in this cell for eternity. Well then, mister, I'm as guilty as can be. Well, I wish I had me a picture of what his face looked like when I kicked in my bedroom door and raised my 45. I said, I ain't the kind to hurt a woman, and I hope you'll understand. But somebody's got to die today, son. It looks like you're the man. See, brother, 'cause I've been down and I've been out, and I know how it feels to stand up for what you think is right and get knocked off your heels. And I'm murdering a man who didn't understand what she meant to me. It means I'll rot here in this cell for eternity. Well then, mister, I'm as guilty as can be. Well, that's what I told that jury. That's what I told that judge. And I knew there'd be hell to pay if I fulfilled my grudge. See, I don't mind these prison bars tucked off in these pine trees. But one thing about that cheating woman, she won't cheat again on me. See, brother, 'cause I've been down and I've been out, and I know how it feels to stand up for what you think is right and get knocked off your heels. And I'm murdering a man who didn't understand what she meant to me. Means I'll rot here in this cell for eternity. Well then, mister, I'm as guilty as can be. I said, if murdering a man who didn't understand what she meant to me means I'll rot here in this cell for eternity. Well then, mister, I'm as guilty as can be.
You're listening to Live from the Backroom on 106.1 Flip FM. I don't think you have to worry about anybody being upset with that. That was
Well,
fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I mean, that's an intense song, and I felt, felt that.
Well, I hope I did it justice.
You did.
Thank you.
So, Jon Hope, we appreciate you coming by here today. We certainly thank you for stopping by here in Floydada specifically. Is there anything you'd like to promote or mention or say before we sign off?
So I'll just tell you real quick. I've got you can check my website out. I try to post all my shows and as well as updates on releases and that kind of stuff. And then you can check me out on Facebook. It's Jon Hope Music on Facebook. I think Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and oh yeah, I just got on TikTok. all of those are Jon Hope Music.
Okay. And the website is Jon Hope Music.
JonHopeMusic.com.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Don't want people Googling because there's another Jon Hope.
There is, and he does a very different style of music than myself. And I didn't know that until we already had Jon Hope Music, and I had already set up all my social media stuff, and then I ran across him, and I was like, that's going to be a problem.
Hey, you got it first, so.
I guess. We'll see who stakes the bigger claim to it, I suppose.
All right. Well, you've been listening to Live from the Backroom on 106.1 Flip FM. We've had Jon Hope with us this morning, or afternoon, excuse me, and we thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.